Last night I read a passage which intrigued me for many years, and I think I got a handle on it. The passage you can find in Matthew 11 or Luke 7. John the Baptist had been put in prison, sent his disciples to Jesus to ask, "Are you the one to come, or must we wait for another?" Then Jesus said to John the Baptist's disciples, "Tell him what you're seeing. The blind are seeing, the lame are walking, the lepers are getting cleansed, the gospel is preached to the poor." And he sent them away. But the one more thing he added to that, he said, "And blessed is he who is not offended by me." Now, that has always been to me, I've wondered, what does it mean? Why would they be offended by him? But then you read a little further, and Jesus speaks about John the Baptist, and he explains what kind of a man he was. Kind of a man who lived under harsh conditions. His disciples, obviously with him, I'm talking John the Baptist's disciples, must have lived under the similar conditions out in the desert. Don't know what they were eating. John the Baptist, we read, was eating locusts and wild honey. He wasn't having parties, he wasn't having wine, he wasn't having a whole lot of fun. But he was baptizing people, preparing them for the Messiah who was to come. So Jesus explains this to the crowd after the disciples of John the Baptist had left. And then Jesus goes on to say that John the Baptist came, he didn't eat nor did he drink, but they said he had a demon. The Son of Man came, he ate and drank, and they say he is a friend of tax collectors and sinners, he's a glutton and a drunkard. And that's because Jesus did go to parties. For instance, we read that Matthew gave a massive big feast, and we read of several times about Jesus went to feasts when he was invited to people, and he enjoyed good food. And he did associate with people who were tax collectors and even prostitutes who had been saved. So he said, "Blessed is he who does not take offense at me." And the disciples of John the Baptist must have had a hard time to reconcile that message which they heartily embraced with the message that Jesus was bringing. And I just think that's why Jesus said to them, "Blessed is he who doesn't take offense." And there are people today who would take offense at a message that they hear some churches preach. Some churches preach and have an emphasis on the blessings that God has for his children and the good life that he promises. And people take offense at that. They prefer hell and damnation, or whatever you want to call it, or maybe a harsher message that you should keep the commandments. And if you don't keep the commandments, you are doomed unless you accept Jesus as your Savior. And that's their way of bringing across the message. But then Jesus was telling the crowd, "You're like a bunch of kids that play in the marketplace, and someone plays a wedding song but you don't dance, someone plays a funeral song and you don't mourn. What do you want?" And people are maybe still like that to this day, that neither the harsh message nor the blessing message suits them. And then Jesus obviously was saying that this is rather regrettable.